Hello, 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 and welcome back to BSB Preview. If you joined us in the last hour, you already know I am Sandy Lowe, Bold Strokes Book Senior Editor, and we may or may not be opening a theme park here at BSB. I'm just going to give everyone a minute to filter in. One of the more popular commentaries from the last hour was a special question that we got in our chat roll. And that question was, what do you do when you can't think of what to write? So that's going to be our opening question for our panel. And I also do want to note super quick that some of these authors write erotic content. So if you do have kids listening, please make an informed choice. We're going to answer this question for our reader first. All right, let's start with Anne. Anne, when you've finished answering, just pick someone at random, and then the next person picks someone at random.
Okay. What do I do when I don't know what to write? I walk away and give myself a break and don't think about it for a while, work on something else, and just give myself time to think through it. MJ.
Okay. What I do when I can't think of what to write generally is I read through what I've written before and hope that kind of jumpstarts the writing process. Brit?
What I normally do is I too will walk away, and if nothing comes to me, then I will play a game.
Would you like
yeah, Carson, please, would you like to tell us?
Would you like to play a game? Well, I have two answers. One is take a walk or a shower where you don't have a phone or anything you can write with you, and then you'll think of all kinds of things to write about. But usually I have stuff I can write with me, so I jump ahead, and I'm really glad you picked me before Aurora because I figured she might say something similar. Aurora!
I totally was going to say that because I work full time and I have odds and ends. So sometimes my time to write is sort of, it is what it is. And so I don't write in order. So if I can't think of something to write, I write something else. I have like 18 or so half-baked scenes in my current manuscript. One of them will work. Vic.
I couldn't do, oh my God, just hearing you say that gives me like palpitations. Like Carson, I think I have two things I do. One is walk away. Like everybody has said, getting away from the space, I think, can kind of give you a fresh perspective. And the other thing I do is ask what my characters want. I always go back to what is it they fundamentally want. And then while I'm walking around, I can think about that and figure out what the next scene is with regard to what they want. So, right, Angie.
I like to tell myself stories when I go to sleep to kind of get my mind off of, all the everything. And so a lot of times I'll come up with story ideas when I'm like taking a nap or trying to go to sleep at night. And then I remember about half of it in the morning, hopefully. Oh, I'm supposed to pick somebody. Who's left?
Your wife.
Megan's my
wife. When I don't know what to write, I like to read. That's always really helpful, and not even necessarily books in the genre that I'm trying to write. Even just reading like interesting news stories or things that have happened to other people. Real life situations can kind of spark ideas for characters and stories.
Great idea.
All right, so this is a reading panel. We are reading from our June 2021 releases, which will be out in just about a week. All righty, who am I gonna pick first? Does anyone want to volunteer? Volunteers.
I'll go.
Who is that?
Angie.
Angie. All right, awesome.
I'll get it over with.
Oh, Angie.
So Angie is reading from her novella, which is part of a collection that she will explain to you. If everyone else can turn up their video and audio and give Angie the floor.
Okay, so just a very brief setup. Dylan is one of my characters. Dylan is an insecure after her ex-girlfriend spent 2 years convincing her she wasn't butch enough. Her first attempt to date again is Carrie, and when their first date goes a little wonky, things fall apart quickly. This excerpt that I'm going to read is from their second chance date, and it's dinner at Dylan's best friend's Puerto Rican restaurant. The sound of chairs scraping across the floor drew their attention away from each other. Within minutes, as if by magic, the center of the room became a dance floor. The waitress came by to clear their plates, and 2 men were right behind her to take away their table. The sudden dimming of the light startled Carrie, and she reached out to take Dylan's hand. Carrie strained to identify sounds from one end of the room, and then she recognized the gentle beat of a drum, followed by hoots and hollers from the crowd. The anticipation of what was to come had Carrie on the edge of her seat. The noise died down as the lilt of a woman's voice cut through the darkness. She was softly singing something in Spanish that gradually gained tempo and volume as she progressed toward the room's center. Carrie turned to Dylan, but the darkness hid her from view. She threaded their fingers together, and the connection comforting. The voice quieted, and brass instruments cut through the silent room like a bolt of lightning. Drums once again set the rhythm as light illuminated one of the most beautiful women Carrie had ever seen. She held a microphone as she gently swayed to the music. When the woman began to sing, Carrie was utterly transfixed. She wasn't exactly sure if what was happening was real or a dream. The quiet scrape of a chair told her Dylan was scooting closer. Carrie felt her warmth surround her like a blanket as Dylan wrapped an arm around her and leaned in to translate the lyrics in a whisper. Puerto Rico was my home. California is where I am. No matter how far I go, my heart belongs to my noble land. Carrie closed her eyes and allowed herself to soak in the moment. She didn't need Dylan to translate the words, but the effect was intoxicating. The music, the beautiful woman's voice, and Dylan's comfort surrounded her, whispered in her ear. It was all so surreal, she wanted it to never end. When the song was over, the crowd went wild with applause. Dylan pulled back and moved her chair to its original position. Carrie immediately missed the intimacy of being in her arms. Buenos noches, mi familia. The energy in the room was contagious as Carrie clapped at the woman's greeting. My name is Isabella Delgado, and we're going to have a wonderful time tonight. The crowd was almost in a frenzy at that point. As always, this first dance belongs to my wife, mi corazón, Valentina. Are you ready, mi amor? Val appeared from the crowd and took Bella in her arms. The music began again, and a man from the band stepped up to the microphone to sing as Val and Bella danced the salsa like they'd done it their whole lives. After a few minutes, couples from the crowd joined them on the dance floor. Carrie had seen people dance the salsa before, but never like this. It was beautiful, and she couldn't pull her eyes away from the way the couples seemed to be in perfect sync with each other. They moved with the energy that existed only for them. Dylan stood and held out her hand in invitation. May I have this dance? Carrie looked up and smiled, but shook her head. She had no idea how to salsa. Dylan squatted down next to her chair, and Carrie leaned down so they could talk over the noise of the music. I can't do this, Carrie said. I can teach you. Don't listen to Val. I'm a good teacher. I don't want to embarrass myself. Dylan looked around, pointed to a less crowded corner, and gave Carrie a pleading look that she found impossible to refuse. She stood, and Dylan led her across the floor, through the crowd of dancers, to the area she had indicated. There, Dylan placed one hand in the small of Carrie's back and held up the other for her to take. When she did, Dylan began to lead them around to the beat of the music. She knew she was stumbling through the moves, but Dylan's confidence and strong frame made her feel like she was gliding across the floor. When the music stopped, Isabella took the microphone back from her bandmate. Gracias, everyone. Let's slow things down a little while we warm up the floor. She turned to her band, and the musicians nodded back before playing a beautiful ballad. Carrie walked towards the chairs, but Dylan stopped her. One more? Carrie hesitated, but she finally nodded and allowed Dylan to lead her around once again. The tension between them seemed to melt as she rested her head on Dylan's broad shoulders and relaxed into the rhythm of the music. This was what she wanted. She could get lost in this feeling, and that was just fine with her. She'd worry about what came next tomorrow. Tonight, she just wanted Dylan to hold her tight. That's it.
I love it. Thank you. So my question for you is, do you dance? And if not, why not?
I'm really good when I'm drunk, but
Y'all.
well, in my opinion. But other than that, yeah, like, no. I two-stepped when I was a kid. I am a Texan, but after that, no.
Okay.
I usually give people drinks.
It's nice that, you know, it's something that you can write about and live through fiction as opposed to in life. Lovely. All right, let's stick with this novella collection. I am going to grab Meghan O'Brien. I know how much she loves reading.
My dogs are momentarily not barking, so
Okay.
I don't oh, no.
Aurora, before you start reading, why don't you do a little intro for the collection? Tell us like a little bit about the theme. Be perfect.
Sure. So I am thrilled to be part of this novella collection. It is called Opposites Attract. It is a collection of 3 butch femme novellas, mine along with Angie's and Meghan O'Brien's. And it's been really fun to write. And actually, I will be sticking with the dancing theme because my novella is all about Jude Benoit, who is a New Orleans venture capitalist who's been named Majesty of an all-lesbian Mardi Gras crew, which is a very big honor. Only she comes to learn that she is kind of charged with the opening dance at the Mardi Gras ball, and she doesn't dance. And so she decides to do dance lessons at the prodding of her assistant, and this is her first dance lesson with Gabby. I didn't expect us to jump right in. You're not going to give me a diagram or something to memorize? Gabby bit her lip. She expected someone older, stodgier, not hot, and that's exactly what Jude was. And she managed to be stilted and a bit stuck up at the same time. That's not really my style. Jude frowned. What is your style then? She told herself the edge in Jude's voice was nervousness, not disdain. The first and most important step is to get you to feel the music. Jude's lip curled, and it became a lot harder not to argue against disdain. Feel the music? Are you serious? Deep breath, patience. Yes, dancing is more about letting your body run the show, not your brain, and your body feels rhythm naturally. Jude folded her arms, and despite telling herself the movement was off-putting, Gabby's body had some feelings of its own. You'll have to forgive me. I have a great deal more faith in my brain than the way my body may or may not feel rhythm. If I promise you will have steps to memorize, will you let me do it my way? Jude seemed to consider her options, like really consider them. It wasn't hard to imagine a virtual pro and con list tallying in her mind. For now. Something told her that was a major concession. I'll take it. She tips her head. For now. Jude's expression changed. Her features didn't soften exactly, but Gabby couldn't help get the feeling she just won a battle, or perhaps scored a point in some imaginary game. Jude's eyes almost playfully gleamed, and had Gabby not found her attractive before, well, that would have done it. All right then, let's get started. She looked Jude up and down. Did you want to change? Jude glanced at her outfit, then at her. Is that necessary? Entirely your preference. Even if Jude in a pair of athletic shorts and a t-shirt might prove less distracting than Jude's current look of gray pants and a white Oxford with tiny gray dots. I'm comfortable like this. I bet you are. Like I said, your call. You'll want to get the shoes you're planning to wear and bring them from here on out. Jude offered the slightest of nods. Noted. Okay, shall we? Jude made a sweeping gesture with her hand. By all means. She crossed the studio to where her phone sat on top of the sound system. She scrolled through her tried and true playlist before settling on Rosemary Clooney's Sway. As the sound of the opening horns came through the speakers, she turned to face Jude, only to watch her stiffen all over. Oh dear. She returned to Jude, extending her hands, but letting them hover over Jude's hips rather than settle on them. May I? Jude frowned, but nodded. Gabby started easy with nothing more than a gentle swing of her hips. She applied subtle pressure, encouraging Jude to do the same. Not the smoothest movement, but not the worst she'd seen. And Jude did seem to connect with the beat almost immediately. A huge relief. There you go. I'm not sure what this is supposed to accomplish. Jude continued to move under Gabby's hands, even as she complained. It's getting your body to tap into the music, so your brain doesn't have to. Another frown. Are you sure we shouldn't start with the steps? We don't have a lot of time, and not to sound arrogant or anything, but I can learn and memorize almost anything. You just have to teach me. Gabby dropped her hands and stood straight. If that's what you want, why did you bother with an instructor? You do just as well with a book or a video or some stickers on your floor. Jude scowled. Okay, time to try another tack. What do you do exactly? Jude gave her a quizzical look, but didn't seem offended. I'm a venture capitalist. Not as helpful as she might have hoped, since she wasn't entirely sure what that was, but she wasn't about to admit it. What's the single most important skill in being successful? I assume, of course, you're successful. The playful rib was definitely the way to go. Jude lifted her chin. Instinct, specifically my ability to read people. It doesn't matter how good the idea or the business is if the person behind it isn't right. She smiled, grateful for the clue about what Jude did, as much as the fact that Jude had played right into her hands. Not the numbers. Don't get me wrong, the numbers have to be there, but it's more than that. She opened her mouth, but Jude didn't give her the chance to speak. Oh, I see what you did there. Well played. She smiled again. Jude might turn out to be an obstinate, clumsy pain in her ass, but she had a sense of humor, or at least the semblance of one. She could work with that too. Thank you. And the time it took them to have that argument, the song ended. She started it again and returned to her position in front of Jude. Now, where were we?
Love it. So much dancing in this session. Cool. So I'm not going to ask you about dancing. I would like to, but we're going to stick to the topic of this, which is opposites attract. This is a butch femme collection. So what is it about this sense of opposites attracting, the kind of butch femme dynamic that appeals to you? Why did this idea appeal to you as a writer?
I mean, I think the butch femme dynamic is almost exclusively what I write. It's sort of my sort of personal preference. I identify as a queer femme, and I am very much drawn to sort of masculine of center women and trans men, if we're going to go there. So I think that's just always inherently interesting to me. But I really like the idea of opposites attract and sort of the other ways that you could play off of that, and that you can have someone who's uptight and someone who's a free spirit. You can have someone who has a lot of money and someone who doesn't, and that there aren't sort of singular ways that those things sort of divide or play off each other, but that you can play with them and throw together two people who seem really, really different from each other in a lot of ways, and then give them some spark that makes things interesting and exciting.
That's cool. Also, I have to tell you that my heart stopped a little bit when your character looked the other one up and down and said, "Would you like to change?" So I was like, you never say that to a woman, Aurora. But I love that it was the femme character saying that to the butch character. And I don't know. I love that twist on things. So awesome. All right. I wonder if Meghan O'Brien is back.
I am. The dog is being handled by its other handler.
We're doing the dog shuffle tonight.
Yes.
All right. So you have also contributed to this novella collection, Opposites Attract. Tell us a little bit about your story and start reading whenever you're ready.
All right. So my story is about Maisie, who is a small town waitress and working the overnight shift at a 24-hour diner, and it's empty when a very attractive butch customer walks in that she first thinks is a man and then suddenly realizes is a woman, which is very exciting to her. And this is after they've kind of talked in the restaurant, and then she's gone out to the parking lot with Aiden, the trucker, to give Aiden's dog some bones and spend a little more time. And they were just kind of getting a little intimate when the dog blew them apart, and here we go. Maybe it's good that he stopped us. Good. Maisie didn't understand. They were only holding hands. She'd never even got her first kiss. Before anything went too far, we were holding hands. For the first time since they'd sat down, Maisie made it direct eye contact. It's a long way from too far, isn't it? When Aiden didn't answer right away, another more awful thought occurred. Oh. Brow furrowed, Aiden took a step closer. Oh, what? It's fine if you're not into me. I get it. Ashamed to have pushed, Maisie retreated a step so as to maintain the safety buffer between them. I shouldn't have been so forward. Judging by her expression, Aiden was downright mystified. Forward, she chuckled. No, you weren't. Why would you think I don't want you? No, Maisie was the one with no idea what was going on. Because you said you were glad Major stopped us? I'm almost positive I said maybe it's good, not good, I'm glad that's over. I was giving you an out if you needed one. How about if I need an out, I'll tell you. It felt surreal to be throwing herself at a complete stranger after a lifetime of celibacy. What would her mother think? Or God forbid, her father? Who cares what they think? Whispered a familiar voice in the back of her head, and for once, Maisie listened. I liked holding your hand, and I wouldn't have minded a kiss. Aiden's chest rose and fell, her breathing shaky and audible. Wouldn't have minded, huh? She licked her lips. Maisie couldn't stop staring at the sheen her tongue left behind. Was that it? Or was it more like you wanted a kiss? Maisie's face burned with deeply ingrained shame. Maybe her mother was right about the romance novels turning her into a wanton whore. Hey, Aiden ran a knuckle along Maisie's jawline, a feather-soft caress that ended up going straight to her nipples and clit. I wasn't trying to make you feel bad. The opposite, actually. Sounding contrite, Aiden dropped her hand and laced Maisie's slim fingers through her own. Goes without saying that I'm more desperate for that kiss than you are. I was just stoked to hear that the attraction is mutual. It took all of Maisie's courage to meet Aiden's steady gaze. Maybe we should go around back for a few minutes. You know, if you still wanted. Aiden let her off the hook by taking over. How about I escort Major to his bed and I'll meet you there? It should be quick. Surprised by Aiden's concern about whether she'd wait, Maisie said, that would be nice. She was all too aware of the ache between her thighs. Kissing only, though. Is that okay? Aiden squeezed her hand and let go. It's perfect. After what felt like an hour, but was no doubt closer to 5 minutes, Aiden rounded the corner of the diner and squinted into the dark. Maisie? She stepped out of the shadows and waved Aiden forward. Over here. Aiden seemed nervous upon reaching the far side of the dumpster. Is it safe for us to be out here? If someone caught us, she exhaled, ducking into the darkness to join Maisie near the rear entrance. I don't want to cause you any trouble. While she wasn't 100% confident this wasn't a stupidly dangerous decision, Maisie was short on ideas. They couldn't retreat to Aiden's truck because, well, she wasn't about to get into a vehicle with someone she barely knew. Make out with her, sure. But more or less volunteer to be kidnapped? No way, even if her would-be captor was drop-dead gorgeous. Inside the diner was also out. Her boss had installed cameras outside the restroom 6 months ago, in addition to those already pointed at the cash register, kitchen, and front door. Maisie? Aiden's hand found her shoulder in the darkness. Maisie didn't want to hear whatever she was about to say. Don't worry, we'll hear any cars coming our way long before anyone sees us. When Aiden didn't object, Maisie moved close enough to feel the heat pouring off her. That warmth, along with Aiden's scent, only deepened her hunger for the forbidden fruit of another woman's lips on her own. Though she couldn't see Aiden's face, Maisie could both feel and hear the effect their proximity had on her. Aiden slid the hand of Maisie's shoulder down to grip her forearm, then took hold of her other forearm with equally shaky fingers. Walking her backward a couple steps, Aiden leaned in once Maisie was trapped against the wall. And you're sure? Gentle lips ghosted across her forehead, nearly crumbling Maisie's legs beneath her. This is what you want? Yes. You know, she'd never fully understood her own heart before today. Maisie knew for a fact that this was all she'd ever wanted. Please. She inhaled the exquisite press of supple breasts against her own heaving chest. Before I kiss you first. Maisie froze when tender lips brushed against her cheek and trailed a string of kisses along the curve of her jaw. She knew it was coming, her first romantic kiss, and the anticipation was killing her. What if she didn't feel anything, or worse yet, hated it? The fear of being abnormal, feeling desperate for physical intimacy without any hope of finding the partner she desired, hastened to Maisie's increasingly shallow breathing. Hey, Aiden retreated a couple inches, giving her time to inhale, then exhale. The gentlest hands Maisie had ever felt cradled her face, precisely the reassurance she needed but wouldn't have been brave enough to ask for. It's me, Aiden, truck-driving guardian of a socially awkward pit bull. There's no reason to be nervous, not when you're by far the prettiest girl I've ever had up against a wall. And that's where I'll stop.
Leave it to Meghan O'Brien to read the sexiest, sweetest kiss ever. So you are well known for writing erotic content, hot, spicy stories.
I am.
But this story and this character particularly is quite innocent. And Maisie, this is her first kiss.
Mm-hmm.
So my question for you is, why did you decide to write a character like Maisie?
Well, especially when a butch femme collection, the idea of being a young feminine woman who encounters your first butch, as a kind of more feminine woman who encountered some butches in college and was kind of blown away. I know that, that feeling, that experience of having your eyes open to the possibilities you didn't even know existed. And that's kind of where Maisie is at. And I think that kind of somehow gets to the heart of the butch femme thing for me, is like understanding that, oh, there's this person who's going to compliment me perfectly out there and is sort of exactly what I want, but maybe didn't realize I could have had. And I think that that's a very sweet, romantic way to come into your own sexuality.
Absolutely. I love it. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next up, we are going to have MJ read from her June release, Desires After Dark. And this is an erotic paranormal novel set during the pandemic, which is kind of awesome. I love that combination. Just gonna help MJ start her video here. There we go.
Am I there?
Your video is not on.
All right, give me a second.
But that's okay. We can hear you. There we go. Perfect.
A little better.
Awesome.
All right.
So why don't you introduce your book, and you can start reading whenever you like.
All right. Well, like Sandy said, my book is an erotic romance with featuring Alex, who is about a 600-year-old vampire. The book starts in Buenos Aires, but then through different things that happen, they end up in New Orleans. So she's in New Orleans right now in the section I'm going to read. The other two characters in the section, Bijou is a woman that Alex has met in a restaurant and has just taken out on her first official date. And the other character that you'll meet later in it is called Shantae, and that is Alex's personal driver and the only mortal who knows the truth about Alex. So they've just had dinner, and Bijou has asked that she be allowed to pay respect to her parents at St. Louis Cemetery, and so they've done that. And now she just turned to Alex. Okay, Bijou said, the rest of the night is yours. Are you okay? I'm fine. I appreciate you letting me pay my respects. Of course, Bijou. The feel of her name on my tongue still exciting me. I would never deny you anything. She looked at me questioningly. What is it you want from me, Alex? What do you mean? You are so kind, and you've been so patient. I think we both know where this night will end. That excited me, and I fought not to break into a wide smile. But after that, what do you want? We're from two different worlds. I like you very much, but I'm quite settled in my solitude. I understand, I said. I'll take whatever you want to give me. Will one night be enough? As long as after one night we can still see each other occasionally, as long as I can still call you friend. Oh, Alex, my dear, you'll always be able to call me friend. I bent to kiss her. It was a brief meeting of lips, yet I hoped it conveyed all my wants and desires. She kissed me back, her lips sucking on mine and keeping them in place. Shall we head back to my place, I said. What shall we do there? It's early yet. I took a deep breath. Obviously, she wasn't ready to go to bed yet. I wondered what sort of lover Bijou would be. I suspected she'd be a pillow priestess, and I longed to worship at her altar. We can sip champagne in the gazebo. It's my favorite place to relax and unwind. That sounds lovely. Let's go. We stopped in the kitchen to get some champagne and flutes, which I carried out to the gazebo. When we got there, Shantae was relaxing with the book. We should go someplace else, Bijou said. No, that's fine. I'll leave, said Shantae. Please don't. Join us. Shantae looked from Bijou to me and back again. Go grab a glass and another bottle, I said. You're welcome to join us. Shantae disappeared into the house and returned a moment later with a glass, a bottle of champagne, and a bucket of ice. Well done, I said. Bijou, this is my dear friend Shantae. Shantae, meet Bijou. Your friend? Is she a roommate? Bijou obviously wondered at our relationship. I'm her right-hand girl, Shantae said. Driver, confidant, you name it. I'm in her employ, though, so not really a roommate. Bijou simply nodded. Was it my imagination, or were sparks flying between them? Had I made a mistake asking Shantae to stay? Would I strike out after all? I needed to shake off that way of thinking. Bijou was there to be with me. Shantae was a wonderful person, and obviously Bijou could read that. How was dinner? Shantae said. It was delicious, and the company was fantastic, Bijou smiled, though Alex didn't touch her etouffee. She's often too distracted to eat, said Shantae. She needs more meat on her bones. Bijou was voluptuous and obviously thought me too thin, but I was a normal weight for my height. I'd never been heavy and of course was still the same size I was when I'd been made. I'm right here, I laughed. They laughed too. We filled our glasses and Bijou and I sat on one bench while Shantae sat opposite us. This is nice, said Bijou. This champagne is delicious. Drink up, I said. We have 2 bottles to get through. We drank and chatted and the night was passing most pleasantly. We were well into the 2nd bottle of champagne and I was getting antsy to take Bijou upstairs. But she didn't appear to be in any hurry, so I relaxed and enjoyed the conversations. Finally, Shantae looked at her watch. It's been very nice getting to know you, Bijou, but it's time for me to turn in. You all enjoy the rest of your evening. My pulse raced. It was almost time to take Bijou to bed. Don't go, Bijou said. I looked at her dumbstruck. Please join us. That is, if it's okay with Alex. Bijou, I said, if you want Shantae, you may have her. No hard feelings. I want you both. And that's where I'm going to stop.
Oh my, a surprise threesome. Color me intrigued. So MJ, I think I have this right in saying that this is your first paranormal novel. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right, good. I know you've written some intrigue and some historical as well as contemporary. All of them are obviously erotic too. So what is it about paranormal that made you kind of want to try this genre, this story right now?
I love vampires. I've always loved vampires. I have about 10 short stories published that are regarding vampires. And I kind of felt like they'd been done to death for a while. And then I was thinking, I'm sure I have a vampire in me who has a story to tell. And so Alex and I started chatting and she said, yeah, you need to tell my story. So I did.
Awesome. I love that you have a vampire in you. I feel like you just could have stopped there and we all would have believed it. Love it. All righty. Up next, we have the incomparable Anne Shade. Hi, Anne.
Hello.
Anne is going to read from the short story collection, In Our Words. Anne, why don't you do a little intro to the collection, what it's about, and you may start reading whenever you like.
All right, thank you. So In Our Words is a collection of works done by different writers and authors across literally the world. And we collect it together and put it in this lovely, which you can also see behind me, in this lovely novel, In Our Words, Queer Stories from Black, Indigenous, and People of Color Writers. And it's just to give the opportunity for BIPOC writers to be able to get their work out in their words. And I will be reading from my short story, which is called The Depth of Love. And it's a play on Little Mermaid. And the characters Lindsay and Abele. Abele is a mermaid, and she's come upon Lindsay, who is sitting on the beach of a resort where she's supposed to be helping to get over grief of loss in her family. And Abele is here to help her. Lindsay doesn't know this yet, but this is their first meeting. Lindsay felt as if she had turned on a faucet that couldn't be turned off. Although she no longer wailed and moaned, tears still ran down her face. She looked around, surprised no one had come out while she sat there sounding like a wounded animal for the past 15 minutes. Using the bottom of her nightie, she tried to wipe her tears and mucus-covered face, but she was only replacing what she wiped off with sand, so she gave up. With a sigh, she decided to go back to her villa before someone did come out and find her wallowing in her misery. But something in the water caught her attention. She gasped at the sight of a dolphin breaking the surface and riding a wave toward the shoreline. She stood and walked slowly toward the edge of the water. When the animal slowly walked towards the edge of the water. When the animal broke the crashing waves again, Lindsay's eyes widened. Okay, I must really be suffering from sleep deprivation because now I'm seeing things, she said to herself as the silhouette of what she had thought was a dolphin looked like a woman's figure with a fishtail. Lindsay watched in fascination as the dolphin, woman, or whatever it was, swam closer to shore, then disappeared under one last wave before reappearing several yards ahead of her. As a beam of moonlight spotlighted the water, she saw a woman walking toward her. Lindsay knew her tired mind must have been playing tricks on her when she thought the woman had a tail. It was probably a play of the shadows on the water. Then her mind kicked in the fact that the woman was completely naked, her wet copper-brown skin glistened, looking as if it were covered in diamonds from the moonlight playing on the water droplets. Her hair was in thick, long dreadlocks. She had a narrow waist that curved softly to a flat stomach and generous hips. A chain with a large turquoise stone was wrapped around her waist and lay temptingly low just below her belly button, as if it were an arrow pointing toward the smooth V between her thick thighs. Lindsay managed to tear her eyes away from that tempting sight to look at the woman's face as she slowly walked out of the water, reminding her of that Halle Berry scene in that James Bond movie. It was as if the moonlight was her spotlight, giving Lindsay a detailed view of her beauty. She had light golden brown eyes, perfectly arched brows, the cutest upturned nose, and the reddest Cupid's bow lips, all set in a soft oval face. Lindsay was mesmerized as the woman stopped just a foot in front of her and looked at her curiously. "Hello," the mysterious woman said. Lindsay took a step back, unsure whether this was real or a hallucination from lack of sleep. Hello, are you real?" she asked, knowing how foolish it sounded. "I'm very real. What makes you think I'm not?" "Because I'm exhausted, and it's the only explanation for why a beautiful naked woman just walked out of the water like some goddess out of a mythical tale." The woman laughed, and it was like a soft caress along Lindsay's body. "Thank you. You've never gone skinny dipping before?" the woman asked. "No." The woman swept her dreads over one shoulder to squeeze water from them, giving Lindsay a generous view of her full breasts. She quickly looked up, only to meet the woman's knowing grin. "You should try it sometime. It's so rejuvenating," the woman said as she laid her hair along her back. Are you a guest here? I haven't seen you around." "No, I live nearby. I was swimming along, heard crying, then saw you on the beach. Are you all right?" the woman asked. Lindsay knew she had been loud, but she didn't think she had been loud enough for anyone out in the water to hear. "I'm fine. Have been a wild, it must have been a wild animal or something." The woman reached up to gently wipe away something on Lindsay's face near her eye. "You almost had sand in your eye. That could be most uncomfortable." Her light touch felt strangely soothing. "Thank you." The woman shivered and wrapped her arms around her body. "I didn't expect to stop, so I don't have a cover up. I should probably head back home." She turned back toward the water. Lindsay found that she didn't want her to leave. "Wait, I have a cover up you can use. Since you live nearby, you can return it tomorrow." The woman turned back with a beautiful smile. "Are you sure? I could just swim back the way I came. My home is fairly close to here." "Don't be silly. There's no sense in going back into the water and catching a chill. I'm staying here." Lindsay pointed to her villa. "You're very kind," the woman said, placing a soft hand on Lindsay's shoulder once again. She felt soothed by her touch. Abele gave the woman beside her a quick glance, then looked ahead again as they walked along. The moment she had made eye contact with this woman, she was drawn to her in a way that had nothing to do with the call that brought her here. It was as if something clicked within her soul and made her feel the completeness she hadn't felt in over a century. A feeling she had vowed never to feel again with a human. Decca always told her that you couldn't control what your heart wants, but her sister had never fallen in love with a human. She'd never had to watch them grow old before their soul was released from the broken shell of the body left behind. Abele would help this woman get through whatever was causing her grief and then move on like she always did. The woman unlocked and opened the door to let them in. Abele was familiar with the resort. It was a very spiritual place for humans to come and heal. She had answered many calls to assist. Abele thought the woman being here was a good sign, as it meant she was open to healing, which would make her task much easier. "I'll be right back," the woman said, walking toward the bedroom. Abele looked around the room and noticed the recently burned incense on a meditation altar, a few books sitting on the coffee table with the titles Practicing Mindfulness, Healing After Loss, and What Color is Your Parachute? Proof that the woman was trying to take her healing seriously, but it must not be enough, or Abele wouldn't have been called. "Here you go," the woman said as she walked back into the room moments later, offering Abele a soft cotton caftan. "Thank you." She hesitated for the woman to give her a name. "Oh, Lindsay." She then offered her hand in greeting. Abele accepted it and was rendered speechless for a moment by a warmth surging from their clasped hands throughout her body and gathering at the center of her being. She could see from the surprised look in Lindsay's eyes that she must have felt it also. "I'm Abele." "What a beautiful name." Does it have a special meaning? Thank you. Yes, it means compassion, kindness, and mercy. They stared at each other for a moment before Billy looked away to don the caftan. It smelled of Lindsay, crisp, bright, and clean, like sunshine the morning after rain. The word home whispered through Abele's mind. Have you been long at the resort? Abele asked. A week and a day, Lindsay said with a sigh. You don't sound like you're enjoying it. It's not that. It's just that I have a month-long package, and I'm not sure I can take staying that long. Abele grinned. A whole month? Did you do that on purpose? Lindsay chuckled. It was a gift from my family to not so subtly get me out of their hair. Why would they want to send you away for a month? Abele asked, then recalled that she had just met Lindsay moments ago. It was too soon to be prying. My apologies. That's none of my business. I should go and let you get your rest. She turned to leave. No, I don't mind the company unless you're in a hurry to leave, Lindsay said. Abele could hear the loneliness in Lindsay's voice, and it pulled on her soul like a rope tethering them together. She turned and gave Lindsay a smile. I couldn't sleep now even if I wanted to. Swimming is like coffee to me. It gives me a wonderful boost of energy. A happy smile lit up Lindsay's face and made Abele's heart skip a beat. We could sit outside in one of the cabanas. I found a wonderful bottle of homemade rum punch during a trip to town yesterday, Lindsay said. Abele smiled. That would be nice. That's it.
Thanks, Anne. Oh my gosh. So we've had sexy kisses and almost threesomes and now skinny dipping. I don't know what Vic's planning on reading, but so not only did you write this story for this anthology, but you also chose all the stories that were included.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that. What was that like for you to get, this whole package of short stories that have to go through and choose what would end up in the anthology?
It was really hard because we had so many stories and they were all so wonderful. And to have to pick just a few to go in, well, not just a few, more than a few, but to have to pick, only a few to go in the anthology was tough. And I struggled with what story would be more effective and what story would tell, what stories would make someone want to read a whole book about this. And that's the route that I went, was what stories could you see as like a whole novel? Mm-hmm. And I thought that would be the best way to go.
That's cool. That's great. So I don't know off the top of my head how many there are, but we have a bunch of new and emerging writers, as well as a few of your old favorites from BSB and some other publishers you may have heard of. So please do check it out in our words. Thank you, Anne. I'm going to bring in Victoria. We can keep on chatting about this anthology. Hi, Vic.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Thank you for asking. So you edited these stories. You and Anne were kind of a duo in this endeavor. Anne chose them and you edited them and also contributed as Bray Willows. Is that right? Okay. Yeah. So why don't you introduce your story and start reading whenever you like.
Okay. So mine is called Granddaughter of the Dragon, and it's a myth taken from the Catalan section of Spain. I am Latina, and so I enjoyed having a go with this particular type of mythology. And basically, we have a grandmother telling her story to a granddaughter as a kind of bedtime story, although there's a lot of truth to it. So this is just after the granddaughter has gone to sleep and the grandmother is going to go outside. I made my way to the deck and slipped off my sandals so I could feel my feet in the grass as I made my way to the lake. I hiked my skirt and tucked it around my waist so I could walk in up to my thighs. I tapped the water and watched the ripples flow to the cave at the other side, and soon heard the sounds that always made me smile as my love woke and moved from the form she was most comfortable in to the one she used whenever Lydia came to stay with us. She came out and plunged into the lake fully naked. Laughing as she came up, she pulled me, fully clothed, into the water. We tumbled together as we had for centuries, our bodies intertwined in a dance our souls knew perfectly. When we finally grew tired, we got out, and she helped strip me of the wet garments. We lay together on the grass, drying beneath the moonlight. She plucked a black feather from the grass. You're shedding. I molt, you shed. I scratched at her shoulder blade, where I knew her scales had been bothering her. How is our granddaughter tonight? I sighed, thoughtful. I think she feels the change is beginning. I can see it in her eyes. I wasn't sure if Gabriella's gifts would be passed on, but I think she's beginning to shift. Our daughter, the first of her kind, lived with her own mate, a human who accepted but didn't fully understand her nature. She'd been sending Lydia to us more often, and I wondered if it was because she feared for her daughter's safety or for her mate's. Corona sat up, listening. Gabriella, she's upset. Moments later, headlights slid over the trees a few miles away. We got up and went quickly into the house to get dressed, and then waited for her on the porch. Gabriella flew in as a blackbird and changed to human form quickly as she rushed to embrace us. We held her as she cried, her shoulders shaking. She was taller than I, more like Corona that way, and I had to reach up to hold her tight. We didn't ask any questions, simply let her cry until she sagged against us, taking soft, ragged breaths. I pulled away and went into the house, returning with a large, soft towel. Get in the water, my love. Heal. She quickly undressed and ran into the lake. Self-consciousness was a distinctly human issue, and none of us suffered from it. My heart swelled when she dove into the water, staying under for a long while, and then floating serenely under the night sky. I left the towel on the deck, and Corona and I went inside to wait. But she didn't come back in, and in the morning, Corona went to the cave to check on her. In dragon form, our daughter was solid black, like me in bird form, except for the white scales down the middle of her back. When she came in for breakfast, she looked tired. But the moment Lydia came bursting from her room, her eyes lit up once again. Mama! Lydia leapt into her arms. Luna told me you were coming. Did she? Gabriella asked, glancing up at us. I could only shrug. Well, Luna is always right. Did she say anything else? She said that one day we'll play, just like Maria played with her a long, long, long time ago. Lydia squirmed out of her mother's embrace and ran to my wife. Abuela Corona, can we go treasure hunting today? If your mama says it's okay. Lydia looked at Gabriella, who smiled and nodded. I used to love going on treasure hunts too. Of course you can. Lydia yipped and ran back to her room to get dressed. You're still hiding treasure in the forest? Gabriella asked. You know I built up enough for centuries to hide pieces for another 100 years, Corona smiled. I'll take Lydia out and you can tell your mother what's wrong. She kissed Gabriella's head and her eyes flashed. And if we need to kill anyone, just say so. Gabriella didn't laugh, which she would have done once. Lydia and Corona left soon after, and I made us mint leaf tea, something we'd always loved, though Corona hated it. She said all dragons did, but I wasn't sure I believed her. Our daughter, after all, was one of them. And I'm going to leave that there.
I love it. I also love kids. Long, long, long time ago. Because you're ancient.
Ancient, yeah.
So as mentioned, not only did you write this amazing story for the collection, but you are also the editor. Why did you want to take part in this process? What about it appealed to you as a person, as an editor? Why do you think it's important?
It appealed on a couple different levels. One of them is that I love writing short stories. I think it's a great way to challenge yourself as a writer, particularly if you're a novelist and you're used to having a lot of wiggle room and a lot of space to put down stuff. Short stories force you to focus and to be really kind of strict on what you're going to put down. So, I mean, I always love doing short stories. But this is probably the first time I've been able to put a story in that focuses on my Latina heritage, which is pretty amazing. You know, I've been writing for quite a long time now, and for that to be the first time that I've had something out there very specifically related to being Latina was pretty special. And I'm really proud of this anthology. You know, I think it has some remarkable stories in it. I think Anne chose really, really well. And they're all so varied and they have this depth and dialect to them that's just fabulous.
Awesome. And I think it speaks to the, the depth and the variety of the BIPOC community in general, that it's, it's not just Latino, or it's not just Black. There's so much variety there. And it was so great to be able to bring all those voices together. So thank you so much for the work that you and Anne did. We are super excited about this anthology that you can grab for 15% off along with our other June releases. I just popped the coupon code into the chat if you would like to pick it up and support our BIPOC authors. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Who am I going to choose next? Brit Ryder.
Okay. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
All right. Are you bringing the sexy Brit Ryder?
I'm bringing the teasing Brit Ryder.
All right. Well, the bar has been set tonight. We've had some sexy stories. Oh, I love that cover.
I was concerned about just the, I guess, who was going to be listening to this. So I got a little nervous about my reading.
You're going to be great. I gave a little
heads up.
A little content warning there in the beginning. So I think we will be fine. All right. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Not Guilty and how it came to be, and start reading whenever you're ready.
I wrote Not Guilty because 4 years ago, I wrote my very first erotica novella called Shameless, and it had a lot of positive reactions. So a lot of people were asking me if there was going to be a sequel or if I was going to continue the story somehow. So I came up with Not Guilty, which is the story of kind of pre, during, and post Shameless, but from the other character's point of view. So this is kind of, I don't really want to ruin a whole lot of it, so I'm just going to start reading a scene that I think anybody can understand. I look out at the Kansas City skyline and smile at all the lights that have flickered on since nightfall. You moved. Emery's voice startles me and excites me at the same time. The commanding smoothness sends a warm rush over me, and I stifle a shudder at the instant heat. I put my hand to my throat and turn to find her standing 2 feet away. It takes me a few moments to slip into my cool self. I did. I squelched the need to smile because she thought of me enough to visit. I'm sorry, it didn't occur to me to tell you. Her eyebrows jump and she takes a step back. Oh, I'm sorry. I reached out to stop her retreat. No, not like that. I just wasn't sure where we stood on things. I'm not about to give her some lame excuse about not having her phone number, even though it's true, because it's the 21st century and anybody can be found. She takes a step toward me. How have you been? Her dark gray suit is tailored perfectly. The white shirt underneath it makes her tan pop. I'd forgotten how tall she is, even though I'm wearing 3-inch heels. I wonder if she just arrived. My gaze roams her body appreciatively. I feel like I haven't seen her in ages when it's been less than a month. Still adjusting to my new life. I'm surprised to see you here, I say. She points her glass of whiskey at several suits huddled over a tall bar table. These guys dragged me out, and I'm forever thankful they did. Remind me to buy them the next round. Are you leaving me already? I fold my arms in front of me to stop myself from touching her. The need is strong. Definitely not. I finally found you. Her eyes are bright and are focused solely on me. I normally run from women when they give me that look, but the exact opposite is happening. I'm not done with Emery. I explode with desire at her obvious lust and take a step back. You need to stop looking at me like you're going to rip my dress off right here. Something tells me you might enjoy it. I turn around to gaze out the window again. She moves to the side of me so that she's staring at my profile, but I don't even glance at her. I'd love that. How long do you have to stick around? She asks. I watch as she brings the glass up to her lips and swallows. A tiny bit of whiskey is left on her mouth when she pulls the glass away. I want to suck her lip, taste it, taste her. I have an introduction with the mayor whenever the circle around him dies down, so I don't know how long I have to be here. Have you been to the Kaufman Center before? She asks. I have season tickets to the Kansas City Symphony. Have you been inside all the halls? I smile when I realize she's trying to get me somewhere private. It's probably quieter in Hellsberg Hall, but I think the ratio of attendees to attendance is 2-to-1. Our chances of sneaking off without getting caught are slim. Since when do you shy away from a challenge? Since I became a judge. She takes a step closer. My body blossoms at her nearness. The same judge who touched a Rubens? I nod. The same judge who, she pauses and lowers her voice, let me fuck her in a museum? I nod. And a kitchen, bathtub, and couch. She holds up 2 fingers. I tilt my head and my brows furrow as I try to figure out what that means. 2 couches. I laugh and blush, remembering the chaise lounge at the museum, and automatically place my hand on her forearm. That simple touch sends chills over me. She notices. How about that walk? Her eyes dip down to my cleavage, and I can feel my nipples harden under her gaze. I have never responded to somebody physically like this before. She leaves me breathless and hasn't even touched me. I'll go first. I leave her and work my way slowly around the room. 2 attendants are standing in the hallway that leads to the mezzanine and orchestra levels. I just need inside one of the doors without them noticing. The museum was easier to sneak around in because fewer people were standing guard. I walk around the small gift shop until I can sneak through the side door behind them. I open the first door and slip inside. Only the stage is lit. It takes a few minutes for my eyes to adjust, but I find a seat in row N and wait. I know she'll come for me. I hear a door behind me, but I don't turn. Her fingertips on my bare shoulders make me jump a little. I didn't mean to scare you. Her voice is raspy. I lean my head to the side and she places a soft kiss on my neck. You smell delicious and taste even better. I moan as her lips move to my shoulders and her fingertips graze the sensitive skin of my breasts. I've missed her touch. We're in the open here. Do you want to find a more private place? I ask. When I look up at her, she leans over and kisses me. It's an upside-down kiss and the sexiest one I've ever had. I slide my hand up her neck to hold her close. It's a passionate yet tender moment. When we break the kiss, I stand. She waits for me in the aisle and reaches for my hand when I get close. She's warm and strong. With my hand in hers, she points to a dark corner over by the stage. It's really dark, so watch your step. She pulls me closer, the farther into the shadows we walk. She stumbles over a heavy wooden chair in an alcove by an exit near the stage. It's the perfect place. She checks the door and it's locked. I think we'll have privacy here. Come here, I say. That's it.
Oh boy, that is a tease.
Oh, tease. Yes.
You have to wait a whole week to find out what happens next. Brit Ryder.
It's juicy. I'll just say that.
All right. So this book is first person and Shameless is first person, but they're each point of view, right? Like Shameless is
right. Shameless is Emery's point of view, and Not Guilty is Claire's point of view.
Right. So what was it like writing both points of view, but in different books at totally different times, right? Shameless had been out a couple of years or Not Guilty. Did you feel like you had to go back and like really refresh yourself? Did it feel like a different book, or did it feel just like this, that like revisiting the same characters?
Well, I really enjoyed writing the book because so many years have passed and I've written a lot of books since then. I've written first person past tense, I've written third person. So when I thought of coming up, I thought of the idea of Not Guilty, I had just come off of writing Home. So that was third person. So I started the story in third person. And then I was like, wait a minute, it's in first person. So then I restarted the story in first person past. And then I went to the scene where they had dialogue, and I'm like, holy crap, it's first person present tense. So then I had to start it all over again just to be consistent. And I really enjoyed going back and writing first person present. I like that. I think it brings a sensuality to the story and it helps elevate just the erotic nature of it.
I love it. What is next for Brit Ryder, which is the question on everybody's lip?
What is next? I'm going to get through this one and just, see how it's received. And who knows? I mean, maybe it just depends on the success of it. And
maybe Brit Ryder will have a surprise threesome. Who knows?
Right. You never know. And there might be one in this book. I don't know. I don't know.
But in about a week, we'll all find out.
That's true.
All right. I do apologize to everyone. We are running overtime. We've had action-packed, huge panels this month with multiple authors. So my apologies that we are running over, but we cannot miss a reading from Carson Tate. Carson, obviously I saved the best for last. Don't tell others I said that though. It's you and me.
Do you like this wall? Everybody else has a really nice background and I have like a plain wall because this room was just painted. We haven't put anything back yet.
I feel like none of us can compete with Anne Shade, who always has the best background every time.
For sure. That's for sure.
Why don't you
I don't know about following that scene.
No, I know it's tough. Introduce your book with the title that I cannot spell or pronounce.
So this is the book. It's her consigliere. It's Italian for advisor. And that is, it's generally referred to in a kind of mob family. And this is a romantic suspense novel. We have an FBI agent, Royal Scott, who's been talked into taking one more undercover job. And her mission is to get close to Siobhan Collins, who's the attorney and advisor or consigliere to Don Carlo Mancuso, head of the largest crime family in North Texas. And in her quest to bring down the family, Royal gets a little too close to Siobhan, and she may be the one who winds up taking a fall, but who knows? You have to read the book to find out. So I'm going to read from a scene from chapter 1. Royal is working on her last undercover job prior to meeting Siobhan, and it should give you an idea about why she's reluctant to take on more undercover work. One of the thugs marched her to a nearby van and tossed her in the back. She heard the door shut behind her and the lock slide in place, and she blinked while her eyes adjusted to the darkness. She needn't have bothered trying to see. The space was empty. No seats, no cargo, nothing. She scrambled to her feet and crouched near the door, trying desperately to hear what the men outside were saying. Where should we take her? I know a place, Danny said. It's out of the way, and you'll have no trouble getting her to talk. She knows about the other shipments. You can count on it. The words were chilling, and Royal shuddered. I don't care what you do to her, Danny added, but she can't turn back up alive. If she tells the Garzas what just went down, we'll all be dead. Again, Royal was struck by the betrayal. How had she let herself become so out of touch that she expected any sort of loyalty from a man who'd spent his entire adult life honing his criminal expertise? When this was over, she needed to examine her ability to read people. She'd made a mess of this situation. The only way this was going to be over was with her dead body dumped somewhere in a West Texas desert. Death was also always a possibility with these jobs, but she'd had the good fortune to steer clear of danger so far in her career. The idea that she'd lost her edge after almost 10 years as an agent caused her to double over with her stomach lurching. She beat her fist against the van door in a panic. She'd been in trouble before, but nothing she hadn't been able to handle. This was different. Even if these guys didn't kill her, the Garzas would put a hit out on her for failing to show up with their shipment. She had to get out of here or she'd die either way. She'd had absolutely no idea Danny might have been working against her. Noise. With her hands tied and her gun gone, noise was her only weapon, and she made the most of it. She turned so her boots were against the van wall and placed both feet together, repeatedly jamming them against the metal with every ounce of strength she could summon. The van kept moving, but the small sliding door between the passenger compartment and the cargo hold opened, and a gruff voice shouted at her to keep it down. Fuck off, she yelled. Shut her up, Danny snapped at Eduardo. She stared at the still open pass-through window, waiting for one of them to say something more, but all she heard was a grunted reply. She started to resume her campaign of noise when an idea flashed in her mind. As quietly as possible, she rolled away to the right corner of the van, painstakingly working her legs through her arms so that her hands were in front of her body.
I don't hear anything anymore. Maybe she passed out. Royal used the cover of their laughing to wedge her body against the corner and push herself into a crouch. She inched her way toward the window, careful to keep low and out of sight. She waited until the van came to a stop, and then she slammed her head against the wall, hands against the wall, and yelled as loud as she could. A second later, a gun barrel appeared above her head, followed by Eduardo's face. "Shut the fuck up, you crazy bitch." She lunged for his wrists, wresting for control of the gun. He pulled back, but she wasn't about to let this opportunity get away. She shoved as much of her body as would fit through the open space. "Get off me," he grunted. "Fat chance, drop the gun." He answered by pulling the trigger, and the sound of the bullet hitting the back of the van echoed. He looked momentarily surprised to have missed, and she took advantage of his lapse to grab his neck and begin choking him. His gun hand flailed, and he struggled against her grip, barely able to get out the words, "Drive, you idiot, drive." Royal heard the squeal of the tires as the van lurched forward at breakneck speed, and her hands started to slip as her feet slid on the metal floor, unable to find purchase. She fought to hold on, certain this was only her only chance to get away, but the van only accelerated faster. Boom. She heard the sound of the impact before she registered feeling it, her ears ringing as her body flew through the air. Her hands were no longer attached to the guy's neck. Her entire body was no longer attached to anything. Like an astronaut on a spaceship, she cartwheeled through the air, gravity be damned. Except her spaceship, the van, cartwheeled with her, propelling her through the enclosed space in chaotic fashion. Her body shot toward the rear door, and she braced for impact, but something wasn't right. She rubbed her eyes, briefly noting a warm, wet sensation, and stared hard. But instead of metal in her path, she saw trees and grass and a man running toward her, yelling words she couldn't understand. Her last thought before she shot out of the back was that this was the first time on the job she hadn't been successful at closing a case, and she'd never have another chance.
Oh my God, Carson Tate, what happens?
I have no idea, but that's chapter 1, so maybe it ends.
It ends. Shortest book ever.
Short story.
So a little birdie told me.
Really?
Something. I know. I mean, I don't know anything, but I heard from someone somewhere that Allie Valley's King Casey makes something of an appearance in this novel.
I didn't hear anything about Kane Casey in this chapter, but
that
might be true. I don't know. It's a mob book, so.
Really? Huh. Okay, so my question for you is, did you have a total heart attack, panic attack, like, what's it called? I can't remember. I can't think of the word. Trying to write Allie Valley's King Casey, like, was that kind of heart-racingly difficult? Was there, consultation? How did that go?
Well,
performance anxiety. That was my.
Yeah, I mean, because King Casey takes care of people who do her wrong, so like in very violent ways. I have to do a big shout out to my pal Allie Valley for trusting me to handle her character, and so far she's been very complimentary, and I hope I did Kane justice. It's just a little hint, but it was a huge gift from her, and I really appreciate her letting me use Kane to help my characters out of a jam.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah, definitely panic inducing. I was like,
I was trying to imagine it, like. Awesome. Thank you. We are way over time, so unfortunately we do not have time for any more questions. But thank you so much for being here, to our amazing authors and all their June releases, and to our readers who have stuck with us for the what has turned out to be the longest BSB preview so far. We've had 4 books with more than one author this month, so I don't know who makes the schedule, but she knew. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next month. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys.
Bye.